become very interesting new businesses or new lines of businesses for game content creators. To that end, I invited Matt Dominianni, see, I got it right, Dominianni,
yeah, that's right.
From NBC to come talk about what is my personal favorite area of interest as far as emerging trends, and that's second screen gaming, specifically as it relates to television. So a couple years ago, I was thinking about this sort of revolution or evolution of smart TVs, TVs that are connected to the internet, and I sort of put that together in my head with my phone that had a touch screen that was connected to internet, and since then have been really actively pursuing companies that are exploring the nexus of those technologies and the ways that you create content for that kind of ecosystem. I think, it's not a popular opinion, but I think actually Nintendo hit it right on the head with the Wii U in terms of exploring what those, what is possible with that kind of ecosystem. So with that, I'll turn it over to Matt and let him talk about how big media is using games to stay relevant.
Thank you, David. Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Matt Dominianni. I'm the director of the Universal Games Network at NBC Universal, and I was a game designer and programmer before that. And so just to get a sense of who's here, how many of you are game designers or programmers? By round of applause. Great, okay. And how many of you are marketers or doing user acquisition, that sort of thing? By round of applause. And what about producers or executives or any of that other stuff? Great. Well, that was really just a trick to get you to clap. So thank you. It just feels so good. That's right, yes. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is these games that you play while you watch TV, as distinct from the sort of second screen concept that's coming up in the consoles now. So here's just a quick overview of what we're going to talk about. First, I'll give you a sense of what's going on in the TV industry and why we're paying attention to what they call the second screen. And then I'll show you some different types of experiences that are actually out there right now and sort of distinguish one from the other so you can think about them for when you're developing these kinds of games. And then I'll give you some examples of ones that are up, and then I'll do a very quick post-mortem on one that we developed. And really where we're coming from is that this is something that the television industry, and in particular NBC Universal, is putting a lot of attention on. And so we really want to get the idea out there so that when we work with, or at least when I work with game developers, you have some ideas about it as well, because we want to look to game designers for great ideas. So let's talk about the current state of the TV industry. So this slide gives you a pretty good sense of what things used to look like and what they look like now. So, and this is just for scripted television. In 1953, the most watched episode of a television show, and it's actually the most watched episode of a television show ever, was a single episode of I Love Lucy in which 44 million people watched it, and that was 70% of the entire television viewing audience. So I have a prize here if anybody can guess which episode of I Love Lucy that was. Shout it out. The chocolate one? No, no. That's right, the birth of little Ricky. And so here I have some microwave popcorn for you. There you go. Look out! Okay. But in 2012, the most watched episode of a scripted show was an episode of NCIS, and that was only 13 million viewers and only 5% of the audience. So as you can see, there are a lot more televisions, but there's also a lot more channels and a lot more content. And so, of course, the television industry uses a sponsorship model, and because the sponsor wants people to watch, as many people to watch the show as possible, that trend is moving downward because there's so much content out there. And likewise, you know, more people watch Breaking Bad after Breaking Bad is broadcast than when it's broadcast. And that's on DVR or on demand or whatever. And of course, sponsors know that when you watch on your DVR, you skip the commercials. But that hasn't changed the fact that the television industry is making 3 times, can you guys still hear me? Because I can't hear myself anymore. Still hear me? Okay. The television industry still, to this day, makes 3 times as much as the movie industry and more than movies and games combined. And of course, they're not getting their money from the viewers directly the way the games and movies industry are. Television industry gets their money from sponsors, and sponsors pay up front. They pay before the show is even broadcast. So whether it's a success or not, we've already got their money, right? And so, as you can see, the way things are now and the trend of the way people watch television is kind of moving in a direction that, you know, less people are watching, viewers are watching later, but the advertisers still want their message to be broadcast at the time of the show because, you know, a lot of time the messages are timely. You know, go for some kind of a deal today, or, you know, a car offer or a movie that's coming out or something like that. Yet the money is still there. So the way it is right now is exactly how the television industry wants it to stay. But as far as the trends that are happening, that's not really what they want. It's kind of like a cat taking a bath. So enter the second screen, right? So here's a little slide from a presentation that Google had put together that I stole from them. And, you know, as you probably all do it yourself, people don't just sit and stare at the television anymore. When they watch television, they've got a phone in their hand or a tablet, and they're doing other things. And so this trend is known, and so the television executives got wind of this, and they said, well, you know, those viewers, that's my television executive voice, those viewers, they've got their phones in their hands and they're doing other things. Let's find a way to give them content that's related to the show and put the sponsor's message on the phone too, right? And so, yay, second screen. So they said, let's find a way to engage people with that, right? So I'm going to go through some of the different types of experiences that are out there. The first one, and really in a way the least game-like and the simplest one, is what we call the TV companion apps. And so these are apps like ZBox or Vigil, or also USA Network has a thing that syncs up. And the idea here is, what are people doing when they've got their phone in their hand and they're watching a show? Well, most of them are doing something social with either Twitter or Facebook or some kind of chat experience. And they're also maybe looking things up related to the show, maybe some little bits of information. And of course, this is for the people who aren't doing something completely unrelated, because obviously a lot of people are probably, you know, shopping on eBay or who knows what they're doing, looking at pornography perhaps. No, we would never do that. So ZBox is the most basic in the sense that, you know, we hire an intern to watch the TV shows and log the different interesting things that are happening, and then there's this feed that comes out while the show is on, you know, maybe little bits of trivia or funny information that syncs up with the show. So at, you know, the 10-minute mark, one of the characters said some catchphrase, so now it pops up in there, that kind of a thing. The next is what I call on-air social. And so what this is some kind of social experience that the viewer can do at home on their device, but it actually shows up on the TV screen, sort of like for polls and things of that nature. And Bravo is actually having a lot of success with that. Then there's another one which is what I call synced play-along experiences. And this is the more game-like than the others in the sense that it's some kind of synchronized gameplay experience. And this is an example from a limited run game show called Take It All, in which people guess the prices of objects. And so at home, if you were watching at the time, you could also guess the price of those objects. So when the jacuzzi popped up, it would also pop up on your screen, and then you could pick, and then there was a sweepstakes at the end, right? So that's also synced up with the show. And then the last one is what I call broadcast aware, which is basically, this is the most game-like, and it's a game that can be played at any time. It doesn't matter whether the show is on, but if you play it when the show is on, then there's some kind of special experience that happens. And so this kind of works both ways, right? Because it promotes the show while the show is not on, because people can play the game and it tells them, hey, come on back when the show's on. And then it also gives you a reward for watching and playing at the same time. So here are some just quick examples of things that are actually out there. Bravo is having a lot of success with, this is a screenshot. I guess Larry King was on this show. And this is actually a live show. It's a talk show on Bravo. And so here and I guess they're writing this stuff as it comes, because there's a question, what do you think of Larry King's pink tie, right? And so then people voted on that, and then you actually see the results in real time as the voting changes, right? Then also Bravo's integrating sponsors with this now. And so again, that's sort of what it's all about, right? Because that's the television industry's model, is sponsorship. And they've actually tied it in right there with the sponsor and with the commercials. And so they're really excited about that. Then this is something that USA Network did for a show called Graceland. And Graceland is sort of a cop show, CIA, all that sort of stuff. And it takes place in a big house. And so what this is, again, this is a game you can play when you're not watching the show, but it's more of I guess it's like an RPG in the sense that it's like exploring the mansion and discovering information. It's actually a lot like Z-Box, only in the form of, the visuals of the mansion. But if you play it while the show is on, little things pop up. You can earn points for checking out the different kind of content. So it's gamified in that regard. And then there's affinity sweepstakes and things of that nature that goes along with that. And then we've got something coming up, which, sorry for all the text on this slide, but this is something coming up that I can't actually show you screenshots or tell you about because it's secret. But what I can say is that it's a very popular syndicated show that's coming to USA Network. And we're going to be doing a whole synchronized trivia game with that. And according to my boss, it will be like a game show that viewers can play at home while they watch. And that's what we're going for. So some of the graphics will be on screen, the questions will be on screen. As people answer questions, you'll see them pop up from the leaderboards. The first person to answer, you'll see their Facebook pic. And then also throughout the week, it will be just a game that you can play that, again, syncs up. So the questions pop up as the show progresses. Now this, I want to do just a quick post-mortem on a game that I did. And so I don't know how many of you know the show Psych on USA Network. But it's been on for, I guess now, 7 seasons. It's very popular, very dedicated fan base. And very early on in the production of the show, the crew had left a pineapple or something on the set. And then it became this sort of thing that they did every episode, was they would leave a pineapple somewhere on the set, just as a little Easter egg. And of course, the fans, being the kind of fans they are, they discovered this and they started talking about it. And so we said, well, let's make a game that goes along with that. And so the idea of this game is that we got the episodes in advance. We took a screen grab of that shot that had the pineapple somewhere in it, and then we made a painting based on it. This is a very simple hidden object game, actually more like find the object, because it's really just one object hidden many times. And so what we did was we took that scene, we hid lots of pineapples all throughout it, and if you played the game while the show is not on, you would play for that week before the show is on, it would say to you, this is the scene from the upcoming episode, find all the pineapples, and be sure to come back and play again when the show is on, because then you can find the real pineapple, right? Then when the show is actually on, it would tell you, if you logged in to play the game at the time that the show was on, it would give you a slightly different experience and say, hey, the show's on, be sure to check it out and watch for the pineapple in this scene. And then if you find all the pineapples, and then it would give you a big message that said, okay, you found all the pineapples, now which one was the one that was on television? And so then you would find that, and then we'd have a sweepstakes and all of that sort of stuff. And so basically what happened was pretty much one of the things we hoped for, which was, Psych is on Wednesday nights, and pretty much the traffic on the game, tripled while the show was being broadcast. So people were actually playing the game more while the show was on. Now, of course, with television, we don't have any idea really if this affected viewership, but it's an overall kind of a promotion, right? Then also, and this is probably not a surprise, most people who played the game played it on an iPhone. Twice as much as even the iPod Touch, and then tablets and other devices were way down there. So basically, these are the things that we learned in doing this game, and this is really the first one that we did. the television industry has this great opportunity. We can promote things on television, and it works, right? So we put little, those annoying on-screen graphics at the bottom of the television show. We put a couple of them on to say, hey, go play the game right now. And in the future, we'll probably actually do a TV commercial, like a little 5 or 10 or 20-second spot that says, hey, go play right now. And that has an opportunity to be sponsored. We also found that it's really important to give a very clear reward to the users for playing and watching at the same time, right? Whether that's a sweepstakes or affinity points for whatever game it is or things of that nature. And then obviously tying the show and the game together really helps, especially for the fans who are those, there's different types of television fans, and the ones who are really, really into it, those are the ones who this is most relevant to. And so the more you give them, the more satisfied they're going to be, and the more they'll talk about it. And then, of course, obviously, it's very important to design for small screens, because that's really, right now, where everybody's playing these games. And so, just to recap the whole concept, and again, I want really putting this out there because I would love for game designers to come to me with ideas and say, hey, here's a game concept we can do. And one thing I'll say about that is I make games for all of the cable channels at NBC Universal. That's Bravo, USA Network, Oxygen, all of them really. And so my challenge is to make game engines that can then be reused for really any show, right? So a hidden object game is a good example of that, or a trivia game, right? It's not so much tied to the content in a way that I can't reuse it, but it's done so in a way where I can exchange the content but keep the engine the same, right? So the most important thing to TV networks is live viewership, because that's where the money is, and there's lots of money being made there, right? So we're looking for ideas to engage viewers while the show's on. It can't be action games. It's got to be very casual, because we really want people to watch the show and then every now and then look down at what's going on their device. And then HTML5 is really the way to go right now. And it's kind of, I think it's well suited to this. There's not a lot of animation, not a lot of particle effects in these kinds of games. And so that's pretty much everything we've learned so far in our experience. I really appreciate everybody listening. And if you want to ask me questions about it, I don't know how much time I have.
You have about 5 minutes, which is
Perfect.
Plenty of time for a couple of questions. Let's start here.
Thanks.
Hi.
Curious.
What's your name and which company are you from?
My name's Joe, and I'm with Mattel.
Hi, Joe.
Hi. So very interesting presentation. Thank you. Curious to hear what your guys' experience is with user acquisition using TV tags. Have you found that to be an effective method for driving acquisition? Do you see a spike in downloads in real time when you're airing those tags during the TV show?
I don't know so much about you mean the tags like in ZBox? That kind of a thing, or?
No, in the Final Fantasy Pineapple example, right? You said you have
Oh, the screen on the television screen. Yes, we did. I mean, we definitely for sure saw that people on the episodes where we had that, more people played the game than the episodes where we didn't have that, right? And so we tracked that. We didn't have it from day one.
So from an acquisition perspective?
In terms of registrations?
Yeah, in terms of downloads of the apps.
Well, these aren't apps. These are mobile web HTML5 games where basically we're just directing people go to the website, and then that's prominent on the website. But the game requires registration, and we certainly notice that people register. So that's kind of close to downloads, I guess. Okay.
So related question, Chad from Smashing Ideas.
Hi, Chad.
You said HTML5 is preferred. Is that mostly because of you're losing the friction point of having to download an app?
Well, it's, I think, more about that it's cross-platform, right? And so it includes that, right? We don't want people to have to download something. But it's because, like, for example, you take ZBox. ZBox is an app, and it can load an HTML5 game into a canvas within the game, within the app, right? So then if people go to ZBox, they'll see, oh, Psych is on, and I'm watching Psych, and oh, here's this thing that popped up that said there's a game I can play. They just tap it, the game shows up right there in ZBox.
Did you, taking the Sight game as an example, did you guys promote that game outside of the time that the show was on?
Yes.
On TV?
Not on television, no. Each of the cable channels has a gaming portal that has lots of different kind of casual games, and we made that the most prominent one on the USA Network gaming website, and then also did all the sort of like from the what they call the digital side, the web side, promoting it that way to drive people to it.
Other questions?
If people bring ideas to you with either soon-to-be released games that layer in, what's the business relationship with the network that you are contemplating?
It's a relationship that's really good for me and really bad for you. No, I'm kidding. Mostly work for hire, although we do have service agreements with some of our vendors. But all the stuff that you saw there, although I do have an in-house game design staff, we mostly hire studios. They'll do a game as a work for hire, and then we'll work with it to add the content and change the content. But we work pretty closely with them. I mean, I'm a game designer, and we're game designers, and so we like to work with talented studios. Does that answer your question?
So this model might be different than what you're used to doing. So let's say I had a certain type of game platform that could run independently, but I could visualize an application that would be really powerful for some of your TV properties.
Well, why don't we just talk afterwards, because I'm not really sure what you're asking. Okay.
I think that's all the time we have. Thank
Okay,
you very
great.
much.
Well, thanks, everybody. I really appreciate the attention.